Hey guys, I'm going to be doing a part 1 of my eyeshadow palette collection. I'm just going to be going over the different palettes that I own and giving you guys my thoughts. Starting off with the Cara Beauty palette. Now, I got this palette because the Morphe 35B was discontinued, and this one was the closest one I could find to that palette. I saw a lot of St. Patrick's Day looks using the Morphe 35B palette, and that is why I wanted it. So this one is super close to that, and it has these beautiful greens in here. However, it does not hurt to have another rainbow palette. So that is another thing I like with this one, and it gives me these beautiful sunset tones that I could use to create a sunset eye look. I don't use this one as much because my looks are a lot more natural lately. However, whenever I do want to reach for a bold look, this one will be here, especially for St. Patrick's Day coming up. The next palettes I want to mention to you guys are my Morphe palettes. So I am going to start off with the classic Morphe 35O palette. When I first got this one, it was so overhyped on YouTube. And I didn't love it that much because I'm just not into warm tones like that at the time. However, once I got more into warm tones, I started to like this one more. My favorite shade in the palette is this beautiful copper tone right here. This one is beautiful. And this palette has like a lot of uses for it during the fall season. You could use it for every day as well, but it's beautiful for the fall. And that's when I really reach for this palette. And I also love the shimmers in here in general. This one's really good. This one is also really pretty. So if you want to create a more neutral look, you can use this, and then you can use the browns. It doesn't have to just be orange. And they give you a lot of brown options in here. The next palette I'm going to mention to you guys is the Morphe 3502 palette. So I got this one more recently during quarantine. I just got it online. I like this palette. However, I was a little bit disappointed with it. Like, I really do like it, but I just was expecting some of the similar formula to the 35O when it came to the shimmers. The shimmers in here are still nice. However, they're not nearly as foiled. So I still love this palette. The mattes in here are very impressive, but the shimmers aren't exactly what I wanted them to be. However, it gives me a lot of beautiful orange and red tones in here. I don't reach for this as much, but I do want to reach for it more during the fall season. The next palette I have to mention is the Morphe. This is the 35. Actually, I'm going to reach for the other one first. 35R palette. So this one I got more recently too. I got it during quarantine online. And this one has beautiful gold shades. So if you like more bronzy golds as opposed to like yellow or lighter golds, this palette is really beautiful for that. I believe it's discontinued now, but I do find these golds to just be stunning. My favorite shade in here, however, is this matte shade. This is like a matte, like orangey, like brown tone shade. I absolutely love it, and I love to reach for this palette when I want a warmer crease, but just keep it very natural. And the golds in here are also beautiful. So if I want a more bronzy gold, this is the palette for that. I reached for this a lot during the summer this year. The next palette I have to mention is the Morphe. This is the 35F palette. This palette is beautiful. This was the palette I was the most excited for when I first got into Morphe. However, this one is actually the one that I reach for one of the least. It's a very red tone purples in here. They look more purple on the camera. However, they pull a lot more red on my eyes. I did use this for my friend one time though, and she looks so stunning with these colors. So this is a really pretty palette. I love to use it, especially during Thanksgiving month because of the cranberry tones in here. So if you like those kind of colors, this palette is for you. Really beautiful. The next Morphe palette I have to mention is the OG Jaclyn Hill. I apologize for how dirty it is. However, they just get like this. I put them in a box, so yeah. So this palette just screams Thanksgiving to me. I don't know what it is about it, but that's the time of year when I use this. I usually use it for Thanksgiving looks. And I keep it really to like events because it's a very bold, colorful looks. I do want to reach for this more for every day though. I just kind of neglect it because I have a lot of palettes. However, they do have these beautiful everyday shades as well. And I really like rose gold, so they kind of have those and salmons in here as well. Now, they also have these beautiful bold colors. They remind me of like peacock feathers, so like these beautiful like teal and blue purples. These two almost look like the same shade though. I don't know what it is, but when I swatch them, they're almost the same shade. I believe this is just more of a duochrome. So that was a little bit disappointing, but again, this palette is really pretty and I love this green shade as well. It's like a sage type of green, but like a darker sage green. So this palette is really nice as well. And then my most used and loved palette by Morphe is the Madison Beer one. So I've just been wearing a lot more natural looks recently, which is why I haven't been reaching for the other ones nearly as much. But this palette I love. This is like my go-to Morphe palette. I love it. I reach for this one so often. I'm wearing it today. Just these shimmers are beautiful. The other ones are more like foiled and super metallic, whereas these shimmers are like more like that wet formula shimmer. I love to use setting spray when I do these, when I use these eyeshadows. I really like that this green is kind of like a duochrome green, and then this gold is beautiful. These shades are all beautiful. I usually reach for this palette when I want an all-over shimmer shade on my eye. But this one's my favorite. The next palettes I want to mention with you guys are these are my e.l.f. palettes. So I have two of them, my bigger ones at least. This is the e.l.f. Earth and Ocean palette. I really like this one. I don't reach for it a whole lot, just because I haven't been reaching for very colorful looks. But the reason why I got this palette are these greens. I love green eyeshadow. I don't wear it as much anymore, but I really love green eyeshadows because my eyes are hazel. So I like to reach for greens to just give my eyes more that green color. And then it also has these beautiful blues in it as well. I don't reach for blues that often, but these are really exceptionally pretty. So this is a really nice palette. I actually do want to reach for it more. Maybe I'll do more tutorials with that. I also have the e.l.f. This is the new Classics palette. So I love this palette. This one's a lot more wearable, so I reach for this more often. And it's like muted colors. So whenever I want to reach for colors, but I want them to be muted, this is the palette that I go for. Because it has like these beautiful, like, it has a green, but it's a super muted green. This platinum shade has like a green tint to it, but it really just looks silver on the eye. And that's what I love with this palette. So this is another really good one. The next palette I want to mention with you guys, so moving on to Profusion. So we got the Festival palette. I got this one because I wanted a palette with some yellows in it. I have a lot of gold palettes, but I don't have palettes with like yellow colors in it for the most part. And this palette really offered what I wanted. These are beautiful. I love to wear it during the summer. I don't reach for this palette that much. However, whenever I want to reach for yellows, this is another palette that I love to go for. And it also has other pretty colors in it as well. I kind of want to start creating looks with this palette because it's super like affordable. I got this from Walmart. Profusion is amazing, and I find that their formula is really good for a cheaper palette. I do have 2 more palettes from Profusion. So I have the Wanderlust palette. This one is beautiful. This is like me in a palette because of the color story. Yes, these greens are amazing. And then they have like more like teal greens, the blues. I'm not super into blue on my eyes at least. However, those are pretty. And then the purple and pinks. I love those kind of tones, especially for my eye color, minus the blue. So that is why I really like this palette. And the greens in here are really what attracted me to the palette the most. So this is another palette where if I want to do a green look, I reach for this one a lot. However, my taste in makeup has changed a little bit, where I don't wear like super bold looks anymore. But if I do want to reach for a more bold look, I'll use that one. Next, I have the Lovestruck palette. So I got this palette during Valentine's Day. I love Valentine's Day, mainly because of the decor for Valentine's Day. And yeah, so that's why I got this palette. Another thing I really like about this palette, I think this is my favorite of the Profusion palettes I've tried so far, but are the glitters in here. I know glitters are not like safe for the eye area, but I use them anyways, so yeah. But this glitter right here is so stunning. I love that. It is a little bit bolder. I do have to say that some of the shades I don't reach for that much. Like, I don't really reach for these as much. But this pink shade right here, like, yes, this is my favorite. And again, it's good for Valentine's Day looks. And then moving on to BH Cosmetics. So this was one of the first palettes I had. It's the Neutral Eyes 28 color eyeshadow palette. I do not like this palette that much. When I first got it, I was really into like brown looks. Like I just love that like natural brown eyeshadow look, like Kim Kardashian kind of, or smoky kind of looks. So that's why I got this palette. But I do have to say this palette is like a hit, or like a kind of like hit and miss formula. Like half the palette works and half of it doesn't. Like I swatched these shades. I couldn't even swatch them on my finger, like half of them. Half of them did work though, so if I want to reach for like half the palette, it'll do the job. But I find that it's not that great. The next palette I have is the Take Me to Brazil palette. So I got this when I was really into like those neon tropical looks. I saw a lot of people on YouTube do neon tropical looks. I love that like look. However, what I should have known is I don't really like it on me that much. On my skin tone, it's not that flattering. On other people, it looks great. But with this palette, it's not like it really does that anyways. These shades in here, they're like very chalky. It reminds me of like the watercolors that you get from art class. That's kind of the vibe I get with this palette. But the shades also don't like last. Like if I put them on my eyelids, they're like gone within like 30 minutes. So for me, this wasn't the best palette. I did want to reach for it for Halloween, but it would just fade too fast. So I'm not a huge fan of that. The next palette I have to mention is the Weeknd Festival palette. So I got this palette because of the packaging. I mean, this is not, if this is not the most stunning like palette packaging, then I don't know what is. I love palm tree anything, so this called my name. And then the color story in here is very bright. So I don't reach for this one as much. However, I do have to say these pink-y shades are beautiful. And I do like the bright colors in here. If I want to reach for like a brighter eyeshadow look, this palette I would definitely go for, especially during the spring and summer. But these shades right here are my favorite. Also, I would look at looks that Nicole Cutler did because that was like one of my favorite makeup YouTube artists that I would watch. And her eyeshadow looks I love. So that's another reason why I got this palette. The next palette is the Desert Oasis palette. So again, I got this because of Nicole Cutler pretty much. Her eye looks she would do were amazing and she raved about this palette. And I have to say this palette is so good. Like it's so good. My favorite shade in this palette is this Heat Haze shade. This is a beautiful coppery shade. So that's what I love. But it also has these beautiful like kind of highlighter shades. You could wear them as a highlighter or as an eyeshadow. These ones are more like highlighters, but this palette just offers a lot of options. It has the beautiful colorful looks you could do. I wish the blues looked better on my eyes, but they don't that much. I still want to use them sometimes though. But this palette is really good. The next palette from BH Cosmetics that I have is the Carly Bible palette. Now this one I didn't like when I first tried it. I found the formula to be a little bit of a mess for me. However, once I started using the other Carly Bible, the ABH palette, I love that formula. And I really started to get into those shades. And then I was like, let me try out this palette again. And it looks beautiful. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, even though the formula is not the best with the eyeshadow part, every look I had, once it was completed, it looked very beautiful. So that's what I like about this palette. It has those like ethereal, like fairy purpley shades, which is what I really like about it. And then these highlighters are amazing. So if I want a really like blinding highlighter, I could reach for these. And I also love these like that she also put in these like bronzy gold highlighters as well. So these are really fun as well. And overall, I thought this palette actually ended up to be really stunning. And then I have the Zodiac palette. So this one, my highlighter like just went everywhere. So unfortunately, the middle part was crushed and it kind of messed with the palette. However, this palette is really good. Also, I don't know how to press on shadows, so that's why I haven't done that yet. This is like, if I want a colorful look, this is me in a palette as well because of the greens, the purples, and the like pinky tones in here. I love that this has such a variety. When I did wear more colorful eye looks, I would reach for color stories like these a lot because of the greens in here, and they really do look very pretty on my eyes. So I actually do want to play with this palette more. And when I do reach for more colorful looks, this palette I will go for. And I also love that they give you like these colorful mattes as well as colorful shimmers. And these are very metallic and very pretty. So this is a really good one as well. I believe that one might be my favorite BH Cosmetics palette. And then finally, I have the Revolution Pro palette. This is the newest one I have. This is the new Neutral Smoked palette. Let me just show you guys the inside. This one is very pretty. It gives me like Nabla Dreamy 2 vibes, which is why I really wanted this palette. And I can't wait to use it because of the really pretty colors in here as well. I've only used it like once for the matte, but I want to use the more shimmery shades. I've just been, you know, sticking to more natural color stories recently. So once I reach for a more bold look, this is the palette that I will reach for. All right, you guys, that is part 1 of my eyeshadow palettes. I have a lot more, but that's just all I'm going to share with you guys tonight. Thank you so much for watching and hope you guys have a great day.